Hey there, friend. I want to start by asking you something. Have you ever felt like your days started to blur together after retirement? Like the mornings feel longer, the calendar emptier, and the sense of direction you used to have seems, well, gone? I remember sitting down with my neighbor Margaret not too long ago. She was a school teacher for over 30 years, always busy shaping young minds and coming home full of stories. But after she retired, she told me she felt like a boat that had been untethered from its dock, adrift, unsure where to go next. I used to wake up with a reason, she said. Now I just wake up and wonder what for. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Retirement is often painted as this golden chapter, freedom, relaxation, no deadlines. And yes, those things are wonderful. But for many seniors, retirement also brings a quiet challenge, the loss of purpose. The routines that once gave structure to your days, the job, the commute, the daily interactions, suddenly vanish. And without a new sense of direction, it's easy to feel like you're just marking time instead of living it. But here's the good news. Retirement doesn't have to mean slowing down. It can be a fresh start, a chance to explore new passions, build new routines, and rediscover what makes you feel alive. In this video, we'll go over 7 practical ways to find purpose again, whether you're newly retired or have been navigating this chapter for a while. These ideas aren't about grand gestures or drastic life changes. They're about small, meaningful shifts that can bring joy, connection, and a renewed sense of self. Let's dive in. The first idea might sound simple, but it's powerful. Rediscover old passions or explore new ones. You know those hobbies or interests you used to love but put aside because of work or family responsibilities? Now's the time to bring them back. Take painting, for example. When I met a man named George at a community art class, he told me he'd always loved drawing but stopped decades ago when his career took off. After retiring, he signed up for a beginner's watercolor class on a whim. He said, "It felt like meeting a part of myself I'd forgotten. Suddenly, I had something to look forward to again." Or maybe it's music. One woman I spoke to dusted off her old piano and started playing again. She even joined a local music group for seniors. She said, "It's not about being perfect. It's about remembering that I still have something to give." The key here isn't mastery, it's engagement. Doing something purely because it brings you joy can reignite that spark of purpose. So ask yourself, what did you love doing before life got busy? What have you always wanted to try? Whether it's gardening, photography, cooking, or even learning a new language, give yourself permission to explore. Now, moving on to the second idea, and this one might surprise you, it's volunteering. I know. When we think of purpose, we often imagine doing something for ourselves. But here's what research shows. Giving back to others is one of the most powerful ways to feel needed, valued, and connected. Let me tell you about a man named Henry I met at a food bank. He was 72, recently retired, and told me he felt like he'd lost his place in the world. Then he started volunteering twice a week, handing out meals to families in need. He said, "I used to measure my days by work. Now I measure them by the smiles I see when I show up here. It reminds me that I still matter." Volunteering doesn't have to mean huge commitments. It could be mentoring a student, walking dogs at an animal shelter, or reading to kids at the library. The goal is to find something that lets you contribute in a way that feels meaningful. Because when you give your time and skills to others, you're not just helping them. You're reminding yourself of your own worth. Now, before we continue, let me quickly recap what we've covered so far. We started by talking about how retirement can leave even the most active people feeling adrift. Then we looked at the first 2 ideas for finding purpose again, rediscovering old passions or exploring new ones, and giving back through volunteering. Both of these ideas focus on reconnecting with parts of yourself that might have been set aside, whether it's a hobby, a skill, or a desire to make a difference. And both of them create a sense of structure and meaning that can be missing after retirement. In the next part, we'll dive into 3 more ways to reignite your sense of purpose, starting with a strategy that might feel counterintuitive: creating a daily routine. Because even though retirement means freedom from a 9-to-5 schedule, having a new rhythm can help you feel grounded and motivated. So stick with me, we've got more to cover.
All right, friend. In the last part, we talked about how rediscovering old passions and volunteering can help reignite your sense of purpose after retirement. And I hope you're starting to see how even small shifts, like picking up a forgotten hobby or giving back, can make a big difference in how you feel. Now, let's move on to the third idea, a strategy that might sound surprisingly simple but has a profound effect on how you show up in your days: creating a daily routine. Yes, I know, retirement is supposed to be about freedom from routines, right? But here's the thing, routines aren't about rigidity, they're about structure. And structure gives your day shape, meaning, and a reason to get out of bed in the morning. When you're used to a work schedule, suddenly having no plan can leave you feeling untethered. That's why many seniors who've found joy in retirement talk about building a new rhythm, something that gives their days a sense of flow and intention. Let me tell you about a woman named Ruth I met at a senior center. After retiring, she felt like her days had no direction. She said, "I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling, and wonder what to do with myself." So she decided to create a simple morning ritual: a walk around the block, a cup of tea by the window, and 20 minutes of journaling. By the end of the week, she noticed something unexpected. She felt more energized, more grounded, and less adrift. So what can you do? Start small. Create a morning routine that signals the start of your day. Maybe a walk, a favorite breakfast, or a few minutes of stretching. Add in regular activities that give you something to look forward to, like a weekly coffee meetup with friends or class at the community center. Even small habits like watering plants, feeding the birds, or reading a book can create a sense of rhythm that makes your days feel more intentional. And here's the best part. Routines aren't meant to restrict you, they're meant to support you. Once you have a basic structure in place, you'll find it easier to explore new things, connect with others, and enjoy the freedom retirement offers without feeling lost in it. Now, moving on to the fourth idea, and this one might sound familiar if you've seen some of our past videos. It's building new connections or deepening existing ones. You see, relationships are a huge part of finding purpose, whether it's with family, friends, or your community. Staying connected gives you a sense of belonging. And when you feel connected, you feel needed, valued, and alive. One man I spoke to told me he used to feel isolated after retiring. His work had been his main source of interaction, and once it was gone, he felt like he'd lost his tribe. Then he started attending a local chess club twice a week. He said, "It's not about the game, it's about showing up and seeing people who look forward to seeing me." So how can you start building these kinds of connections? Maybe join a group that shares your interests, like a book club, gardening circle, or a faith group. Or reconnect with old friends you've lost touch with. Even a weekly phone call with a loved one can become a meaningful part of your routine. And if you're not the social type, that's okay. Deepen the relationships you already have. Spend more time with your grandkids. Cook a meal with your partner. Call a neighbor. Connection doesn't have to mean being the life of the party. It just means staying engaged with the people around you. Now, the fifth idea, and this one might surprise you, is setting new goals. Yes, goals. Retirement doesn't mean you stop striving for something. In fact, it might be the perfect time to set new targets, ones that bring excitement and a sense of achievement. Let me share a story. My uncle used to be a mechanic his whole life. After retiring, he told me he felt like he'd lost a sense of purpose. Then he decided to learn how to play the guitar, something he'd always wanted to try but never had time for. 6 months later, he was performing at a local senior talent show. He laughed. "I'm not great, but I feel like I'm moving forward again." Goals don't have to be huge. They just need to matter to you. Maybe it's learning to cook a new dish every week, or saving up for a trip you've always dreamed of, or even training for a short charity walk. The key is to give yourself something to work toward, something that makes you feel like you're still growing, still moving forward. And here's the bonus. Having a goal gives you something to talk about, something to share with others. And that, in turn, strengthens your sense of connection and purpose. Now, before we move on to the final 2 ideas in the next part, let me quickly recap what we've covered so far. We started by looking at how rediscovering old passions or trying new things can bring joy and meaning back into your life. Then we talked about the power of volunteering, how giving your time to others reminds you of your own value and purpose. We explored how a daily routine can provide structure and peace in your days. Then we touched on building new or deeper relationships to stay connected and engaged. And finally, we discussed setting new goals, no matter how small, to keep your mind and heart active. Each of these ideas builds on the last, creating a foundation for a fulfilling, purpose-filled retirement. In the next part, we'll wrap up with the final 2 ideas, ones that focus on learning and sharing your wisdom. Because the truth is, retirement isn't the end of your journey, it's a chance to start a new chapter. So stick with me, we're almost there.
All right, friend, we've already covered 5 powerful ways to reignite your sense of purpose after retirement. Rediscovering old passions, volunteering, creating routines, building connections, and setting new goals. And I hope you're starting to see how even small shifts can bring big changes to how you feel. Now let's move on to the 6th idea, a strategy that might feel surprisingly fulfilling: sharing your knowledge through mentoring or teaching. You see, just because you've retired doesn't mean your wisdom stops being valuable. In fact, your life experience, skills, and stories are more important than ever, and passing them on can give you a deep sense of purpose. Let me tell you about a man named James I met at a community center. He'd worked in construction for over 40 years and told me he felt like he had nothing left to offer once he stopped working. But then a local high school invited him to mentor students in their vocational program. He said, "It reminded me that I still had something to teach. Watching those kids learn, it gave me a reason to get up in the morning again." Mentoring doesn't have to mean formal programs. It can be as simple as offering advice to a neighbor, helping a grandchild with homework, or sharing your expertise in a hobby with a beginner. You don't need to be an expert, just willing to give your time and experience freely. And here's the thing, when you teach someone else, you're not just helping them, you're reminding yourself of how far you've come. It's a powerful way to feel valued, respected, and connected to the world around you. Now, moving on to the 7th and final idea, and this one might feel like a gift to both your mind and heart: embracing lifelong learning. Yes, retirement isn't the end of learning. It's the perfect time to start something new. Whether it's picking up a language, learning to play an instrument, or even taking an online course about a topic you've always wanted to explore, learning keeps your brain active and your spirit curious. One woman I spoke to told me she started taking online photography classes at 68. She said, "I thought I was too old to learn anything new. But now I see the world differently, like I'm discovering it all over again." She even started a small project photographing her neighborhood, which gave her a creative outlet and a sense of accomplishment. So what can you learn? Maybe it's a new skill, like painting, gardening, or cooking. Maybe it's something practical, like using your smartphone to video call family or managing your finances. Or maybe it's something deeper, like exploring a subject you've always been curious about: history, science, philosophy, or even technology. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's about staying curious, staying engaged, and proving to yourself that growth doesn't stop just because you've stopped working. Now, before we wrap up, Let me quickly recap all 7 ideas in a way that feels natural and encouraging. We started with rediscovering old passions or exploring new ones, because doing what you love reminds you of who you are. Then we talked about volunteering, giving back in ways that make you feel needed and valued. We explored creating daily routines, small habits that give your day shape and meaning. We looked at building new or deeper connections, because relationships are one of the strongest sources of purpose. We discussed setting new goals, something to work toward that brings excitement and a sense of achievement. Then we touched on mentoring or teaching, sharing your wisdom to help others grow. And finally, we wrapped up with lifelong learning, keeping your mind sharp and your heart open to new possibilities. Each of these ideas works on its own, but together they create a powerful foundation for a fulfilling retirement. Because here's the truth: retirement isn't an ending, it's a new beginning. And while it can feel overwhelming at first, it's also a chance to rediscover what makes you feel alive, on your own terms. If you've been feeling lost, I want to remind you that this is normal. It's okay to feel adrift at first. What matters is what you choose to do next. Start with one idea. Maybe try a new hobby, or reach out to an old friend, or sign up for a class you've always wanted to take. Give yourself permission to explore, to experiment, and to find what feels right for you. Because purpose isn't something you find all at once. It's something you build day by day, choice by choice. And remember, you're not alone in this. So many people feel this way at first. But with time, patience, and a few small steps forward, you'll start to feel like yourself again. If you found this helpful, and I hope you did, I'd love for you to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another tip to help you live your best life after 60. And if you've already found purpose in retirement and want to share your story, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Your experience could inspire someone else to take that first step towards a new chapter. Because the truth is, retirement isn't an ending, it's a new beginning. And while it can feel overwhelming at first, it's also a chance to rediscover what makes you feel alive, on your own terms. Thank you so much for being here today. Take care of yourself, stay curious, and keep making choices that honor your body, your mind, and your happiness. Until next time, stay strong, stay connected, and live your best life.